Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to this LinkedIn Live with me, Justin York, where for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, we're going to talk about you have data owners, but do they really own the data? It's often a behavior gap that stops data governance from landing effectively in your organization, because you can have all the structure and things like that you like. But data governance doesn't become embedded simply because you've assigned some roles, appointed some people, created an operating model, got a RACI matrix. It becomes embedded when your data owners, your data stewards, and other key roles, including the teams who are involved with the data, understand what they're responsible for. They feel confident that they can act, and they feel supported by behaviours that make governance part of their everyday work. In other words, they are living data governance. It's not something that they have to do, it's something that they are doing all of the time. So last week, I spoke about shadow processes, spreadsheet fixes, and hidden risks in your data ecosystem. And this really is a follow-on from that discussion, because we need to understand the fact that you see those things, the fact that you can see workarounds, you can see shortcuts, you can see those shadow processes happening. What we need to understand is, why do they exist? Often, those things sit in ownership, accountability, and behavior. The reasoning sits in those three things. Because you can have all the data governance roles you like. Owners, you can have stewards, you can have data governance managers, you can have all sorts of things going on in your organization. But if those little data fixes are still happening quietly in the background and you don't really know what's going on, then your ownership and your data governance may well not have landed as effectively as you would like. So this often comes down to the fact that we have an issue with having ownership on paper. I see a lot of posts about this, and they're all very, very good, because what they say is that you can have all the structure, you can have the frameworks, you can have your operating models and policies and mandates and all those kind of great things. But if they're just sitting on the shelf, metaphorically gathering dust, then they're not serving you well. Not only that, but some of the other things that are around it that people have been appointed into roles like data owners and data stewards, they will not be effective without having the real understanding that they need. So now we're going to talk about some of those things. We think about things that are on paper. So we might have data owners appointed, and anybody that follows me and reads some of my stuff will know that I'm not a fan of appointing people into roles, particularly data owners, because they are generally senior people. They're already going to be very busy. They're going to have lots of things going on, and just congratulations, you're now a data owner for finance or HR or whatever it is, doesn't really do anything, because the real work has to start when they've been appointed. So I much prefer recruitment, but on paper, it's great because what you've got is people in a role. Now, when I say recruitment, what I mean is you still want internal people, but what you need to do is go and explain to them, what is data governance? What's it about? What is expected of them? What do we mean by accountability? And often, they will come to the conclusion themselves. They are the data owner. So they've been recruited. Now, if they're recruited, they're much more likely to engage. So we're no longer on paper. We've now got a real person that really understands what they're there to do. So the next thing is data stewards. Now, data stewards can be appointed by data owners, because data stewards should sit underneath the sphere of those data owners in that particular domain. But if data stewards are there, they're on paper, if they are not given the time and the ability and the support to do their role, then they will be just as disengaged. Because if they see their data owner as not really taking much care, then they're not going to take a lot of care because they know they're not going to get followed up anyway. So everything's fine. It's just something else that's in their job description. I'll put that on my CV. I'm a data steward. Brilliant. But it's not really doing anything. And then we have things like governance forums, data governance forums. I have seen a lot of these over the years. Some of them have worked really well. The vast majority haven't. And the reason that they don't is because of the names on paper. Data owners, data stewards. We have a forum, but it's more like a talking shop than it is a solving shop. People go there, they talk about some stuff, they have some coffee and biscuits, and then they go back to work. We don't actually remove any of the things that are blocking progress. In the same way, we'll have a series of processes. One, for example, is an escalation route. So if you put an issue in, you might see something that says, oh yeah, we've got an escalation route. I put an issue in, it goes to the data steward reports it to the data owner. They can't really do anything about it because it's much broader than their role. And so they escalate it to a steering group or wherever it goes. But again, that's something on paper. It's just a process. Unless you see something feeding back from that, you're getting something from it, then it won't be working as well as you would like. In the same way, we might have RACI matrices. Nothing against RACI matrices, they're absolutely great, but typically they will exist inside an operating model or something like that. And so again, we've got data owner is accountable for a particular set of things. Data steward is responsible for a particular set of things. But it's on paper. Unless we've got them fully engaged and it's ingrained in them what their responsibilities and accountabilities are, and that they are enacting those things, then it's just on paper. It's an issue because it's just on paper. And then we'll always have policies, standards, mandates, operating models, frameworks, whatever, loads and loads of stuff that support data governance. I'm not saying that they don't have to be there, because they do. But if, as I've just said, they're sitting on the shelf metaphorically gathering dust, then it's not really going to do anything. So what we end up with is this view of the world that says, tick, 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 all the boxes, we've got data governance, aren't we doing brilliantly? When actually nothing is happening in the background. And the reality is that role definition is not the same as role adoption. So defining something, if it isn't picked up, then it's not going to do you any good. So a named data owner is just the same as, or rather is not the same, I should say, as active ownership. So just having a data owner, having somebody sitting there who's got it in their job description, is not the same as rolling their sleeves up and making decisions, assigning resources to get things done. I'm not suggesting they should sit there and fix rows of data in databases and all that kind of stuff. It's very much more about them making those decisions. And so if people have a title, but they don't really have the clarity, they don't have the time, they're not given the authority or support to enact what it is they're there to do, they won't have the confidence to do it. And if they don't have the confidence to do it, and they don't enact that, then we're back to things on paper again. Now, last week I did speak about shadow processes and the fact that they're acting really as behavioral evidence. What they're telling you is that something isn't quite right. And so sometimes what we will see, they will show us where people do not trust official processes, approved official processes. They just don't trust them. Whether that's because they don't believe the numbers, whether it's because they don't believe in the process itself, because their shortcut or workaround is so much better and it saves so much time, they don't trust the official processes. They will often find that they can't get quick decisions. They can't get something that they need. If they need a response fairly quickly, because don't forget, they're under all these time pressures and delivery pressures, They're being asked to do a lot more with less, but still do it quicker and to the same standard or better. So they need quick decisions. If you've got lots of things on paper and nobody really has clarity or transparency about who owns things and makes those decisions, they won't get them. And when they don't get them, they come up with their own improvisation. We want them to be innovative. We want them to use their initiative. But we don't want them to continually improvise, because if they do that, we end up with more and more and more shadow processes, workarounds, shortcuts, single points of failure. And so people sometimes as well don't know who owns the issue. They don't know who is going to be accountable for it. So if they report something or they find an issue, well, who do they go to? If they can't find that person and they can't find them reasonably quickly, then they'll just ignore it. They'll fix it themselves. And we come back to workarounds and shortcuts and those types of things. So people will also, because of time pressures and delivery pressures, they don't get an answer. They try and report something. They don't know who to. They'll just deliver the report anyway. They will do their best because that is what they are doing. They're not being deliberately difficult when they create shortcuts and shadow processes. That isn't the purpose of those things. The purpose of those things is to get the job done. It's much more about survival than it is following the rules. So they'll deliver the report. But if that report gets delivered and it's not using accurate information, or it's gone through some kind of process that skipped validation, then whoever gets that report and makes the decision on it, well, who knows what they're making a decision on? Who knows how valid their decision will be? And these same people will have learned that fixing it yourself is faster than escalating it and getting it fixed properly. Now, that might be the case for them at that point in time. But if you're having to do it every week, then you are consuming time. But people don't see it over the long term. They don't see it over a month or a year. What they do is that it's for them at the time. Oh, I spent 2 minutes doing that. Well, that's 2 minutes is fine. But if you do it 5 times a week, then it's 10 minutes gone. And then over a year, it builds up. And it won't be the only thing that they are fixing, most likely. So workarounds are often the behaviours that people adopt when governance isn't helping them get the job done. So let us think about the role of those data owners. So data owners need to do stuff in practice. Practically, they need to do something. It's not about simply getting a dashboard. It's not about just attending governance meetings. It's not about just looking at something and saying, I'm not entirely sure what I need to do with this, so I'll do something that's outside of my remit. They should be helping make decisions. They should be helping make decisions around what data matters, because not all data is equal. We have to think about criticality or materiality. We have to classify things, because if we don't do that, what we end up with is everything being treated as priority 1. And you can't manage everything at priority 1, particularly in large modern organizations whose data ecosystems are enormous, and the amount of data that they're handling is enormous. So you can't do that. So we have to categorize things. Which stuff actually matters? That's where you start to spend your time. And then we have to think about, what quality do we need? How good does it have to be? What does good look like? What does fit for purpose means? So if you were the data owner in finance, for example, a director in finance, let's say, and you get a report from your own department, they send in, each one sends in their reports, then that's fine. You get to decide what the quality is, because you're the consumer of the report. But if it's something that goes to be consumed at the executive or something along those lines, then somebody somewhere else who's consuming that data gets to decide what the quality of the data should be. And then it's up to the data owners being accountable for making sure that that quality is maintained at that standard, whatever that is. And then we also have to understand which things need priority. So we know which data matters, we know what the quality of things is, but then we have to think about, well, which things do we prioritize? Because you might get hundreds and hundreds of issues. Remember, if people have been submitting issues and not getting responses, the chances are you're not going to get hundreds of issues because people will just stop doing it. They'll fix it themselves. But we have to understand when we get issues, what needs priority? Against our criticality, which things do we have to do first? Where do we have to apply resource to those things? Which decisions do we have to take? Which ones do we need to get to the root cause of those things as fast as we possibly can? Because remember, if it's top priority data and the quality's failed a little bit or it's fallen a little bit, we get the issues, we need to get to the root cause, fix it at the source, because that's always the best place to fix it. And then the people downstream who are consuming it don't have to manually fix it themselves. But all of those things add up to understanding what are the risks that the organization is carrying, because there will be risks. And the more shadow processes you have and spreadsheet fixes and all that type of stuff, the more hidden risks you have. And you don't need that. What you need to do is on top of those things and understand how these things are working. So ownership means being willing and able to make decisions about the data, not just being named against it. So if we think about data owners, then we probably have to think about stewards as well, because stewards form a bridge between data governance and the operational reality of what is happening on the ground. Yes, they might be subject matter experts. Yes, they should be on top of the data in their own particular area. But what we also need them to do is keep their ears to the ground. What we need to do is for them to listen. We need them to go around and just understand what's going on, what's happening from other people's perspectives. They might be seeing things like recurring quality issues, things that keep coming back. People keep complaining about, why am I still getting this? I've reported it, but nothing's happened. They might see process gaps where people have created workarounds or shortcuts, shadow processes that are going on. Patterns of behavior. People might be saying, just use my spreadsheet. It's much better than the system, much, much better. Use my spreadsheet. We don't do that here. We follow this process. We've got a workaround for that. They might be seeing things where there is unclear handoffs. So I've spoken before about an organization where part of the organization dropped a spreadsheet into a folder on a Friday afternoon and finance picked it up on the Monday morning. But what they were finding was that the data in it wasn't very good. It wasn't fit for purpose. But they didn't know who put the spreadsheet in there. They didn't really know whether it had been validated. They didn't know the controls and the rules. So the handoff was unclear. They didn't know what had happened to that data in order for them to think about whether they should use it or not. So we need clear handoffs. So data stewards should be listening out for those types of things. They might be seeing or hearing about broken feedback loops. I keep talking about this because I see it all the time. People put in an issue, they report a data quality issue or any other issue, and what they find is that nothing happens. They get nothing back, nothing feeds back to them. So what ideal world, what you would like to happen is you put the issue in, it gets triaged, a data owner then makes a decision about when it's going to be done. And don't forget that some of these things might not get fixed until software release 46, which is in 6 months' time. And that's fine. If that's the case, then that's the case. At least you know when it should be fixed. But what can also happen at the same point in time is you can be given an authorized workaround, an approved process on how to get around this particular issue, rather than 16 different ones, depending on who you talk to in the organization. And they might also be seeing lots of things about these local fixes. Well, it only takes 30 seconds. I'll do that myself. Oh, yeah, you need to fix that with this. All those types of conversations, all those things they might be seeing or hearing are really, really important. But they need support. They need time. They need authority. They need escalation routes. They need the the permission to challenge what they see. Because if they're not allowed to do that, then the data stewards will come down to another group of people informally holding things together, and what they become is single points of failure. And we're trying to get away from that, right? That's what we need to try and get away from. So what might good look like then? Well, good looks like issues being raised early. People are confident that they can put the issues in and something is going to happen. Repeated issues are picked up. They're looked at. Somebody makes a decision, applies some resource to it, and it gets fixed. It gets fixed in the source. It might not be quick, but at least you get some kind of other workaround from it. We see data owners making decisions. They look at the priority of something. They determine which is the most important. They make a decision. We're going to do this. If it's not completely in their remit, then they talk to other data owners and they come up with a plan, an approach that they're going to take, and they apply resources to these things. Making decisions. Data stewards are being listened to. Data owners are no longer just sort of saying, well, on paper, I'm a data owner, that's brilliant. Data steward raises something, look, I'm too busy for that. Data stewards are actually getting listened to. They're given the time, they're given the permission to challenge things, and they're reporting things and saying, we've got some issues here that we need to fix, and it's affecting critical data. We need to get this stuff done. Governance forums are no longer for people to have a chat and coffee and biscuits. Yeah, okay, you might have coffee and biscuits, whatever. But it's not about that anymore. It's about the right people sitting in the right room, talking about the issues, removing the blockers. One might say, well, actually, I can't help with that at the moment because I don't have the resource. Somebody else might say, well, I've got a bit of spare capacity. So what I can do, I can help you with that. Okay? So we remove the blockers. We help people understand what is their role with data. What should they be doing? They should be making sure it's right first time when they create it, and they should be making sure it's fit for purpose before they consume it. If they see any issues, then they should be reporting them. We have leaders asking questions. Why do I keep getting this issue coming back constantly? Why does this keep coming back? Why am I seeing this again? We might have fixed something, we might have done something, but we have to monitor things when we fix things. So is it staying the same, getting worse, getting better? If it's getting better, great, we fix the right things. If it's getting worse, it's probably not fixed the right thing. And if it's staying the same, we give it a bit more time. But the key thing about all of this is accountability is visible and it's practical. They are doing something. So it's not just visible in the framework. It's much more visible about how people act around the data. So we might have data owners and data stewards, but the data stewards might still be getting fixed quietly in the background. And that tells me that the ownership hasn't landed. It's not embedded. People are not really understanding what accountability and responsibility and those types of things mean. So the question isn't really about who owns the data. A better question is, are they able, expected, and supported to act like they own it? So over the last 24 minutes or so, we've had a chat about data owners, but do they really own the data? We've looked at some of those things that are in there. And we should be looking at things like when you go back to your desks, just think about one thing. If you see a recurring data issue in your organization, ask yourself, who owns the decision to stop this coming back? Because that will tell you a lot about whether ownership is real or it's just written down. got some comments here. I'm just going to have a quick look through them. Yep, no problem at all. I'll send you the link to the scorecard. Yeah, governance theatre, Vindila, yes, absolutely right. It is. It does tend to be a theatre, but we do need to get rid of that and get people really working. Mohammed, yeah, we make data owners accountable by making them approve, providing wet signatures like that. The KPI metric definitions, their names are highlighted in the dashboard where their respective KPIs are being shown. Yeah, I agree. Making them do something, be accountable for, and if that's a wet signature, then whatever it is, but show that they are absolutely accountable. Yeah, okay. And ownership needs to be a combination of technical and business users. Yeah, that way an effective process can be put into place for maintaining data's integrity. Yep. The technicality does need to be there. Business should always own the data, in my opinion. But the technical guys have to be alongside. They have to be moving alongside them, because if they're not, then they're not engaged. Then it's going to be difficult to get any technical fixes done. Yeah, I like that, Musan. Yeah, about the first point of contact. They should. One of their roles is approving things like changes to definitions that they own. In that data catalog, whichever version is used, spreadsheet, whichever tooling is used, part of their job is to say, I own that definition. They have approved the definition. So therefore, if something gets changed, whatever that is, they need to know about it. Any data changes, any system changes that take place, they need to understand what they are, because it may affect their data. I think there's absolutely, as if you're implementing a solution that can support the type of ownership structure. Okay. Let me just see. Data quality rules need to first defined by data owner and jointly agreed by the business rules and data users. Yeah, I mean, the data quality rules, the rules need to be owned, whoever is accountable for that set of data. And it does, somebody who works for the data owner more likely is going to define the rules, but they have to sort of be accountable for them, to sign them off and say, yes, that is acceptable for what we're doing. Yeah, definitely need to rely on the rules. Yeah, very true. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's CDs. I think there's a major oversight in normal governance and quality programs when it comes to identifying which data is truly critical. No, absolutely, I agree with that. You see it all the time where things are like that, when it's people don't really understand about the criticality of the data. So that's all for today. If you do want the diagnostic tool, you want a link to that, then put scorecard in the comments. I know Helen's done that, so I'll send you the link, Helen. That'd be no problem at all. And if you like this kind of stuff, then follow me on LinkedIn or send me a connection request, and indeed come back and go into my next live. And so next week, so join me next week, because next week I'm going to be talking about the data steward trap. Responsibility without any authority, and why it is that can lead data stewards to even get involved with shadow processes and those types of things if they're not getting the support that they need. So thank you for your comments. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and have a wonderful rest of your day.